And Nebuchadnezzar said, "That's what I dreamed. Tell me what it means." Well, that's what we're going to get into today, because this is a depiction of all the empires that will attain world dominion from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, which was about 600 BC, until the time that Jesus Christ comes back to this earth and sets up his kingdom. You and I are living in that vision right now.
And
we're part of the prophecy.
Let me point out, that's not your interpretation. That was Daniel's interpretation. That's recorded in the Scripture.
Yes, and we're going to try to show you that. So we're going to go back and look at each of these segments right now. The image was divided up into 5 sections. Now, it's important to remember this because many prophecy teachers have said it's 4 sections. They don't distinguish between the Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire, but it's critical that we do that, and we'll explain that in a few minutes. But let's go back and take a look at this image and what the meaning of it actually is. First of all, in the head of gold, Daniel looked at Nebuchadnezzar and said, "You, O king, are the head of gold. You rule the entire world. Everybody on earth is under the power of your influence. You and your kingdom of Babylon, you're the head of gold." Well, the kingdom of Babylon ruled from about 606 BC to around 539 BC, at which time it was replaced by the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Now, in the passage, the next section was the arms and breast of silver. Daniel said, "Another kingdom will arise after you. It will be inferior to you." Well, that actually happened. All of you probably know the story of Belshazzar, who was the grandson to Nebuchadnezzar. And remember, he had this evil feast one night, and in his drunken revelry, he decides he's going to get the golden vessels that his father Nebuchadnezzar had captured from Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem was conquered by Babylon in about 586 BC. They had carried away all of the sacred vessels that had been dedicated to the service of God in the temple at Jerusalem. They had carried them away into Babylon. They were very valuable. Many of them were gold, so they carried them away. Well, Nebuchadnezzar had a respect for God, and he had never used those vessels. He just put them in storage. Well, his grandson Belshazzar, he knows they're there. He decides he's going to be big. He's going to be really important that night, and he gives the order, "Go get the vessels." Well, they bring them out, and he tips these cups to his lips in his debauchery and his revelry. And as he does, the forefinger of a man's hand comes right in the plaster of the wall. Meanie, meanie, tickle you farson. You know, Eddie, that would stop a party pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty cold.
And it did. It stopped that party. Well, what happened was he didn't know what the writing meant. So they immediately stopped the party, stopped the music, and someone said, "You know, there's a man in your realm that interpreted a dream for your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar, and he probably could tell you what that means." Well, they sent for Daniel. He came, and when he read the handwriting, God immediately revealed to him what it meant, but he was troubled. He said, "O king, this is unto your enemies. This is not good news for you." Belshazzar said, "Tell me." And so he gave him the interpretation. You are weighed in the balance. You're found wanting. This night, your kingdom is going to be divided between the Medes and the Persians. Well, history tells us that that's exactly what happened. That night, even while they were having their feast, their party, the Medes and the Persians were invading the land of Babylon, and Belshazzar was overthrown. He was killed that night, according to history. And the second kingdom of this image was then ushered in, the arms and breast of silver. And that was the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Now, the Media-Persian Empire ruled from 539 BC until about 331 BC. Now, we're cataloging here the world empires that will reign the entire world. We know there have been many nations that have come up on the earth, but only 5 have become world dominant. So this image, this dream, this vision that was given to Nebuchadnezzar was to outline the powers that would obtain world dominion. As a matter of fact, in verse number 39 of the 2nd chapter of Daniel, it says that. It says the belly and thighs of brass will be that third kingdom, and it says this, which shall bear rule over all the earth.
Just as Babylon did It's again re-emphasizing that this is a world-dominating empire. Now, are we talking about a world from, from Japan all the way, all the way around through Alaska and everything in between, or is it really centered around the Mediterranean countries, the Europe and Jerusalem and Assyria?
Well, Eddie, it would be the known world of that particular day. That's the way much prophecy relates, but it was the dominating power, like in the days of Rome, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Rome had occupying forces all over the known world of that day. So even though they may not rule every nook and cranny, every outpost, it's dealing with those powers that bear rule over all the earth. Well, the Media-Persian Empire inherited all the power of Babylon. It just was a quantum global shift. And that's when they took power. And the Media-Persian Empire ruled up until 331 BC. Well, at that time, something else interesting happened. There was a very great Grecian king who arose. All of you will recognize his name, Alexander the Great. He came stampeding through the land and conquered the entire world by the time he was 30 years of age. Alexander the Great loved war so much that he sat down and wept when he conquered the last point of resistance. He wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. He didn't want to rule. He wanted to conquer. It's pretty impressive when you think about the fact that here's a young man, 30 years of age, that rules the world. He conquers the whole world by the time he's 30. And then, of course...
I think about my life. By the time Alexander the Great was my age, he had been dead for 10 years. So it's a humbling experience.
So it's very interesting, though, when you see the fulfillment of this prophecy. The Grecian Empire ruled from 331 BC until about 197 BC. Then we move to the fourth section. Now, the reason we're going through this is because we're living in one of these sections right now. And we need to know exactly where we're living because it has prophetic implications for all of us. So in 197 BC, the Grecian Empire was cast aside, and the Roman Empire came into existence. The Roman Empire is symbolized by the iron, the legs of iron, of solid iron. So you want to make sure you make a distinction between the legs of iron and the feet of iron made with clay. The legs of iron symbolize the Roman Empire, which ruled the entire world of its day. And it's easy for us to understand this. Eddie, there's an illustration in the Bible where there were Roman soldiers at the crucifixion. And that gives a real clear picture of the way the world was at that particular time, because the reason there were Roman soldiers at the crucifixion, those were occupying forces of the Roman Empire to enforce the rule of the Romans even in the Holy Land. So Paul, the Apostle Paul, was a Roman citizen. You could become a Roman citizen and you would have all the benefits. Even though he was Israeli, he was Jewish, yet he was a Roman citizen. So that was the way the world was run. Rome ruled the entire world of that day.
A world government.
Yeah, it is a world governmental system. So all of these are pictures of world governmental systems that will rule the entire world. That's what this prophecy is all about. Many other kingdoms have risen and fallen in the time from the beginning of this prophecy until now, but only 5 of them became world government in scope. So the Roman Empire ruled from about 197 BC until about 300 AD. Then the Roman Empire decayed and sort of disappeared. And there was not another dominant world empire for about 500 years. Now we're approaching what we have to spend a lot of time talking about today, because there were many people who longed to reestablish the glories of the Roman Empire, but they couldn't do it. However, there were 2 forces that emerged around 800 AD. There was a political power, and there was a very powerful European leader by the name of Charlemagne.